Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Harley Quinn. A great season finale. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, there's a whole situation. We're picking up the episode at the mayor showed up. I even love the little thing at the bottom says, Gotham has a mayor, because it's just kind of like a thing of like, well, we haven't seen you the entirety of everything that's going down, especially like the new Gotham thing. We didn't see hiding or hair of you. And then obviously they're passing out keys to like Batman, to Superman, to Wonder Woman, and then some other people. It's like, oh, we couldn't do this without you. And even Gordon's like, what the hell is this all about? He's like, I haven't even seen these people before. Who the hell are they? And then the mayor gets to the final key. He's like, give this to the man who does so much without powers, me. And Gordon's like, what the hell? I literally kept this city alive. It's like you feel bad because Gordon did a lot. He took down Two-Face. He's literally been the leading force keeping Gotham alive. And then, and it's kind of a shame that he didn't get, the recognition. It's like, oh, that does actually suck. But it seems very fitting. Then we get a look in Arkham, and we say Psycho's locked up. It's like, okay, and then we see Harley as. I was like, oh, how the hell did that happen? Especially because we see that, Ivy and Kite Man are fine. So it's like, did they bail? I know more so than anything, Harley probably just let herself get captured because she was like, oh, like, I need to be out of their way. They're in love, and I'm just going to be in their way. And it was her kind of punishing herself more so than anything. I think that's what it was meant to be. And even the guard was like, oh, here's like a fruit cup, you want to talk? And she's like, no, I got still some stuff for myself. But you can leave the fruit cup. He's like, actually, part of this verbal agreement, it comes with a conversation as well, so I'm gonna go. So she kind of doesn't even have a fruit cup now, which is like, that's just a lot. Like that, I think that's supposed to be an analogy for the fact of the matter is, and it's like, oh, like I literally have nothing because me and Ivy are in a completely weird, awkward, kind of terrible situation we're in, and I can't even get a fruit cup because it's like, oh, the opportunity to that's even taken from me. It's just I literally have nothing in this moment. So I thought that was interesting. I love Ivy still trying to. I'm so curious to see what direction they were going to take this, and her kind of pleading with Kite Man, being like, what happened between me? It was like a fling. Me and Harley, that was a fling. It was a mistake. It will never happen again. Which sadly was something she kept saying over and over again beforehand. Like, it's like, oh, this can never happen again, and they repeatedly slept together over and over again. That should have been kind of the sign there, but Ivy, it's like, you're the one I love, you're the one I want to marry. She even got that place he wanted to get married at, and it's like, and he's like, yeah, but what about Condiment King? And she's like, well, and it turns out Frank ate Condiment King and his girlfriend. She's like, yeah, he's out of town, and he's probably not going to come back. I mean, not like he's dead or anything. I mean, he's super alive. He's probably never going to come back, and no one knows exactly where he is. And I love Kite Man being like, oh man, you face one of Gotham's greatest villains for me. And she's like, that's actually a very overhype of who Condiment King is, but yeah, sure, because I love you, I want to marry you. So I'm like, like I said, you feel bad because, like I said, it's obviously it's Harley and Ivy, but at the same time, you're like, but I would want things to work out with Kite Man. But to be fair, the way he kind of sets things up later on kind of shows like, yeah, I was kind of in the wrong with my thought process. We'll get to that soon enough, but obviously, and I thought I'm curious in the long run what the hell Two-Face was planning, because obviously, like, Gordon arresting him and everything, he's like, oh, like, I've got a lot of complex emotions that I'm surfing through, and it's like, oh, you're angry because the mayor didn't give you a key. He's like, I deserve a goddamn key. He's like, no, it's not even about that. What you said was stupid, Two-Face. And so when he arrests him and take him to Arkham and everything, he's like, oh, what you should do is run for mayor. He's like, oh, I'm not a politics guy. He's like, yeah, you're more the guy that, like, kind of, what was it, like, you're quick to fire, and then you're super quick to kind of get pissed off and everything. He's like, you don't know what you're talking about. Say that to my fucking face. It was like, yeah. Even to think of like, yeah, I'm more of a shoot at bad guys and occasionally shoot innocent people because, and I'm not perfect. That which, not in no shape or form am I using this against the show. It's just when you actually think about that line, you're like, I just thought about it now saying it aloud. I was like, man, that line is very fucked up and dark, especially with everything that's going on right now. Once again, this is done in advance of all that. It's like, I'm not trying to correlate the two. It's just my mind was like, man, that with the context of everything going on right now, that's like that line's even more darker and fucked up. It was already a dark and fucked up line. It's supposed to be like a dark joke. It's even more of a fucked up joke when you think about it in the context of everything. Once again, the show wasn't written in the context of what's going on right now. This was written months ago, well, probably even like a year ago. Time for Whites, whatever the case may be. Like I said, I shouldn't even have said anything. It was just something that kind of popped in my mind. But Two-Face is like, oh, why don't you go to Ivy and Kite Man's wedding? There's going to be a shit ton of villains there you can arrest, And even, and it's like, oh, it's like, oh yeah, like the power and everything, the respect he'll finally get, because, and he even convinces the GCPD, which they were like, should we really go? I even like those two cops being like, oh, so Ivy's still going through with it. And another one was like, no, you mean Kite Man's still going through with it despite what she did. And Gordon was like, let's not. We don't know what the underlying situation with their relationship is. Kind of like, let's not talk about the relationship because we don't know the ins and outs of it. I was like, that's such an interesting perspective. But it's like, these are a whole bunch of super villains with powers. And like, what do we have? And it's like, we have a good plan. But at the same time, Two-Face ends up telling Harley about what he's got planned. And I thought that was interesting. And he's like, yeah, Gordon, you know that guy. It's like, well, I guess because he knew he could use this as a situation. Like, I mean, I get, he is, well, as Ivy ends up saying later on, we're talking about Two-Face here. He is it's literally in his name. And once again, we still got to give her credit. Let's not forget that it's actually Harley that coined Two-Face. We can't forget that discovery in this show. That's still just such an interesting little tidbit of detail, regardless. But I just thought it was interesting. I guess for him, he's like, well, I can manipulate Gordon into doing this. And I know that Harley caring about Ivy the way she does. I'm actually super surprised no one brought up the fact is that they banged. Like, no, I guess it's kind of like, who knows how much time has passed between them. I feel like it's still relatively soon enough since last episode. But I'm surprised no one threw that in her face the entire episode. It was just kind of like we saw a few people saw it, but I'm sure the entirety of Gotham City saw that. No one brought it up. I think that speaks volumes. I think that's kind of an interesting thing to it. I guess it's just kind of like, it's kind of old news. Who cares? Two people banged. Who cares? But nevertheless, I think it was just, but for him, he knew he could manipulate Harley into, busting him out. So that ends up being the case. She shows up at the wedding and everything. Because obviously King Shark and Clayface had asked her to like come and and everything, and obviously I love the whole thing about Clayface too. He's like, oh, like he doesn't care about Ivy. He wants this performance to be great, but King Shark's like, no, don't worry about it. Like Ivy's gonna love it no matter what you sing. He's like, I don't care about her. This is about me. It's about that man over there. It's like, who is that? That's Catwoman's date. Do you know who that is? That's Tim Burton. I was like, that's so interesting. Like that, the timing on that is very cyclical because obviously, like the recent news about the whole Michael Keaton thing popping up in the DCEU movies, in particular being in the Flash movie, potentially in other DC movies as well. So it's interesting, like the timing for them to be like, oh, Tim Burton, which obviously Tim Burton directed. I don't know if he wrote them as well. I definitely know he directed them. He might have written them as well, the Batman movies, because I always kind of think of the one Batman movie. I always think of Returns. I always forget. Because I think in my head I combine Returns and Batman. Like, I think that's why that ends up happening in my head. Because I always, like, confuse titlings with Batman Returns and Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, so on and so forth, regardless. But I just thought that was so interesting. And it's like, oh, I thought you would have done this initially because you care about Ivy. He's like, I did, but now I'm doing it because it's also beneficial to my career. So I was like, okay, at least he's being blunt and honest about the whole situation. So I was wondering if his performance was actually going to be good. I mean, it sounds really good later on when we actually hear it. I was like, oh, I was kind of almost worried it was going to be a shit show, but obviously, Harley shows up and she's trying to be supportive, but it's like, no one's going to ruin my friend's wedding except for me. And then she gets put up with the other bridesmaids, and it's Jennifer, Nora, Catwoman, which even they're kind of giving her shit because it's like, oh, you weren't here during rehearsal. She's like, what is it? Simple, like left foot, right foot? Yeah. And then Catwoman's kind of giving her shit. And she's like, are you in a bridesmaid? She's like, yeah, but I'm not going to get caught dead wearing that outfit. And she's like, I'll put it on. She's like, what? After you lose those 10 pounds? And then later on, I felt so bad because I was like, that was a bitchy thing to say. That was like mad messed up. But then even Harley was like, she was right. I thought she was just being a bee, but it's like, no, this dress is super tight. There's a whole thing of her running into Kite Man, and he's like, oh, like, have you seen so and so? Because they're supposed to hook me up with some Xannies. I think it was like Frank's supposed to hook him up with some Xannies in case he, like, because he's kind of a nervous wreck right now. I also got to appreciate the number of villains, because we see, like, in the background, we see that Bane showed up. I guess we're just casually being like, he got out of the pit at some point in time. We saw Solomon Grundy there. There's 2 ice villains. I wasn't sure. I knew one of them had to be, because the first one was the one that kind of has almost like her hair sticking up and she's blue. I was like, oh, is that Killer Frost? But I think the other blue lady was Killer Frost. I don't know who the other person was. But there was like Zaz was there, Man Bat. That was kind of pretty impressive. A grouping of individuals to show up at the wedding and everything. So it's like, oh, that's pretty dope. Especially those being like some of those being villain. I'm sure if you look at the other crowd, you're like, oh, this is so and so. Once again, I'm not well versed in like DC Comics like that, so I'm not going to be the pinpoint. And it's like, oh, there's a villain, that villain. So it's a perfect timing to consider, especially including Solomon Grundy, considering Stargirl, because he's one of like the Injustice Society of America and Stargirl. So regardless of all that. Harley, like I said, trying her best to, help out with, she ends up knocking out the wrong person because she thinks it's Gordon. And then it's like then Ivy shows up and is like, what'd you do? And she's like, obviously for Ivy, it's a situation of like, she's stressing out because like this is all kind of being sudden. Like obviously she's trying to do everything she can to like, appease Kite Man, because Kite Man is basically like, oh, I'm going to fall to pieces. Like, if you don't want to marry me, just don't, and I'll go to a bar and drink my problems away and just kind of like debate about what's like the best metal song or something like that to describe myself. It was something of that nature. And so for her, it's a situation where Ivy has to balance everyone else's feelings while, not having an opportunity to really deal with her. It's like, well, she's got to deal with the way Harley feels about her. And also, like, the fact that she's got to consider how Kite Man feels about her. So she's almost kind of basically putting everyone else's feelings before her own. And even to the point, it's like Harley's trying to explain to Ivy, it's like, no, it's this. But she's like, like, you're my friend, but, I want to marry Kite Man. I can't have you threatening that. And it's like, but Gordon's here. And it's like, oh, like, do you know how crazy you sound? It's like, yeah, but Two-Face told me, yeah, you're hearing from the person literally Two-Face, and it's just kind of like, you need to get out of here. And it's just like, and you felt so heartbroken. You're like, oh, come on. I was like, that sucks. She tried to do the right thing. And then as she was leaving, she noticed that the flowers were fake. And it's like, well, obviously we're talking about Ivy. She would never have fake flowers around, because it makes sense in the grand scheme of things, because later on it's like, oh, she can't actually use the flowers, so that's why they replaced all the flowers. But nevertheless, I even love when Harley was trying to, like, during the reception and everything, or during the ceremony and everything, Jennifer came and punched her in the boob, because she was like, oh no, like, this could be like the last wedding, because I'm like 37, gets to be the last wedding I could end up going to as a bridesmaid and whatnot. It was actually interesting too, hearing Kite Man's, his thing being like, oh, the fact is, after you rejected me again and again and again, and just, and once again, it shows you, like, your relationship wasn't based on the best thing anyway. Like, that's why I kind of feel bad, yet at the same time, my perspective on it is kind of different from when I was like, oh, but I still want, like, I want Ivy and Kite Man to be happy. But it's like, so that's why I was kind of like, oh, I want all 3 of them to be in a relationship together. I know, it's just, like I said, I brought it up last episode, my little weird idiosyncrasies about stuff like that, because I don't want anyone to be heartbroken. I'm a sucker for romance, but it's like, the true romantic thing would be realized they're not meant to be, and just kind of leave it at that. But it's just like, I never want people in stories that ever walk away heartbroken. I want it to be like a happily ever after, which it still can be, but it's just, like I said, it's a complicated thing, like idiosyncrasy that I kind of have about it. But he's kind of pouring his heart out into it and everything, and Ivy's just kind of like having to read hers. His was kind of all memorized and whatnot, and she just kind of, it's like, oh, it just becomes more and more evident. But then it's like, wait, Gordon makes his move, everyone gets gassed, and he's so happy because he had that reporter show up, which I don't know if I brought that up. Like, the reporter is voiced by Tisha Campbell, which is pretty dope. I think I keep forgetting that anytime she pops up. But nevertheless, I thought that was, it's like everyone's getting knocked out by the gas and everything. But Harley steps up. It's like, nah, no one's going to ruin her friend's wedding. So she ends up like letting all the gas out. And Gordon ends up running. And I love the reporter, she's being like, and Gordon is like, oh, because it's so impressive. He took down all these oh, never mind. He came here and accomplished absolutely nothing except for pissing off a whole bunch of supervillains. So it turns into everyone going buck wild. You see some blood on the wall as everyone's using their powers to, they're fighting amongst everyone. Clayface is putting on his performance for Tim Burton. Catwoman gets him out of there. She called him Greg. I'm assuming, I'm wondering, was he mistaken thinking it was Tim Burton, or was it like no, that's actually Tim Burton? Because I know some people use stage names, so it might be like a stage name that his real name might be Greg, if I remember correctly. I don't know. I'm not even saying I remember correctly. Like I said, it might, whatever the case may be. I just thought that was so interesting. He even had a tear rolling down his eyes. So like I said, Clayface kind of killed it. So it's like massive destruction. It's like, okay, Harley's like, I can actually get you two married. We're not in the building, but we're on the property, so we can do it. But Kite Man was like, no. I was like, oh shit. Because for him, he's like, and this is what kind of changed my perspective on like my little thoughts about it. Because it's like, for him, it's like, the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to try to get married for a third time. He's like, I saw it in your face. Like, I may love you and I want to marry you, but obviously you don't feel the same way. And it's like, you're right, I do deserve better. And the fact of the matter is, like, you deserve someone to kind of make you happy. So it's kind of sad, especially when he kind of takes off with his kite and it says just married. I'm like, oh, that's just sad. And I was like, oh, but at the same time, you're also like, that sucks. But leaves room for Ivy and Harley, so still thumbs up. And obviously Harley tries to get Ivy out of there while they're being hunted by Gordon. And the moment they were in the car and he was chasing them, I was like, this seems very Thelma and Louise right now. And I guess that's kind of the aesthetic they're going for. But obviously for Ivy, she's like, no, Kite Man was right. And the fact of the matter is, she's like, but she's actually impressed with Harley because the fact of the matter is, you are trying to change, and that speaks volumes. It's like, yeah, you're still chaotic and you're going to make a mess sometimes, but the fact is, you are trying to change, and that speaks volumes. So I love that moment of her just being like, I love you, Ivy. And she pauses and she's like, I love you too. I'm like, oh, and they're about to kiss. He's like, whoa, watch where you're going, keep your eyes on the road. And they end up like, their car ends up jumping in the air and they kiss. I was like, oh, that's super sweet. Still being chased by cops. So, and it says, the end, ? I also can't forget the fact is that Frank was banging that flower in the back of that car and he was like, oh, I'm about to pollinate you or something like that. I forgot what I was like, oh, wow, this is just, wow. Very chaotic situation. So, very, very interesting season finale. At the time of me recording this, Harley Quinn hasn't been renewed for a third season. I hope that it gets one. I'm curious if it's going to have anything to do with the whole like HBO Max situation, especially like, once again, what the future of the DC Universe app situation is going to be like, because HBO Max is now a thing. Obviously, that's been a conversation multiple times, so we're not going to retread that. But I'm wondering, is that going to play any part in it? Obviously, I really hope the show gets a third season. The show needs a third season because the show is fucking great. And I'd love to see what they would do with a third season, especially because now we have Ivy and Harley together, like them balancing, doing their... Well, because once again, Harley's not really... She even acknowledged it, she's like, I'm not even like a villain. I'm not even, a bad guy really. So it's like she kind of borderlines as an anti-hero right now. And then like, obviously they're on the... Like, will the next season be them still on the run? Because is Gordon going to be mad, persistent about going after them? I mean, what about like... because obviously it's like they screwed up his plans of being a hero, top dog and everything. Which that's going to be a complicated thing considering the fact that your daughter kind of has like a interesting kind of friendship and bond with Harley and Ivy, so that would present a very interesting situation. But I'm curious, like, what's their crew going to be like? Because it's like, they're not really interested. Because, Harley even talked about it. Like, everything she's ever done over the course of the series has kind of been, like, retribution or, like, reactionary. So it's like, oh, I wanted to join the Legion of Doom just to kind of show up Joker. Oh, I wanted to take down Injustice Society just to get back at them for, like, taking me out of the picture. So it's like her whole thing was always been about chaos and stuff like that, but now she's in love. It makes you wonder in what ways is that going to change Harley. What about the crew, like in general? Because it's like, I didn't even talk about it. Cy was at the wedding. He was in the TV, but it's like, obviously he's still alive, so that's pretty dope. But it's like, obviously it's going to be Clayface and King Shark. Still got Frank, but like obviously Dr. Psycho's locked up in Arkham. So it's like, well, what does that mean for, once again, and that's something I brought up, like, what's their new team dynamic going to be like? Are they going to add, like, another person to kind of, are we going to get, like, another supervillain to fill that role? Is Condiment King and his girlfriend dead? Probably super dead and probably not coming back. Once again, the show doesn't shy away from, straight up killing its villains like that. But it'd be kind of interesting if they made Bane part of their crew or something like that. Because I forgot, like, him and Riddler both got locked up again. No, Psycho and Riddler, to be fair, they were behind the parademons and everything, which also presents another thing. Let's not forget, Darkseid made his like proclaim last episode of like, oh, he's gonna come back to his planet, so that's another storyline, element still open. But like, also let's not forget about Joker's back, but he's just kind of living a life, and what's that going to be like? Maybe we see a situation where he's out and about in Gotham and it's like, oh, Harley, Ivy, what's up? And it's just almost like a double date situation, would be weird and interesting. What does Kite Man's future hold for him? Like, who will he end up meeting and falling in love with potentially? Questions like that. Just in general, what other DC characters will they throw our way? Like some that might just be one-off episode characters, some that might be recurring, some that might be a permanent. I'd love to, see, like there's so many different directions they can take this. Like I said, especially if they make it so that Harley and Ivy are still on the run. Like eventually it makes you wonder, will Gordon, because obviously he didn't take down those other supervillains, but it might be a thing where like a lot of them are arrested, and so he's adamant about going after Ivy and Harley because they screwed up his plan to look like a great hero and stuff like that. Like I said, I'm so curious to see what if the show does get a third season, which like I said, I hope it does. I'd love to see what they'd have in store for us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.